All right, today we're going to work a little bit with one and two-step equations. Another way to look at that, we're going to isolate the variable or get it all by itself. So for this one, I've got f divided by negative 14 equals 13. So I look at the side with the variable, and then I look at the operation that's happening, and I see division happening right here. So the opposite of division would be to multiply, and I use parentheses to represent multiplication. And then I had asked myself, well, how much do I need to multiply by? Well, it depends on how much is being divided. So f is being divided by negative 14, so I'm going to multiply by negative 14. And when I do that, negative 14 over negative 14 equals 1. And that's what I'm looking for. I am trying to get f all by itself. And then I have negative 14 times 13, which is going to equal negative 182. I can check that by plugging in, because now I know what f is. Negative 182 divided by negative 14. A negative divided by a negative will be positive. 182 divided by 14 is indeed 13. So this is true. F equals negative 182. I'm going to do a bunch more here, and you can kind of watch what I'm doing. The main thing is I'm looking at the side of the variable. I'm seeing what math is happening, and I want to do the opposite of it, just so I can isolate the variable. So like in this one, I see that I'm subtracting 3. I'm looking at the side with the variable, and this side I'm subtracting 3, so I'm going to add 3, because that would be the opposite of it. And when I do that, I'm left with y on the left side, and on the right side, I have 4 plus 3, which is 7. And then I can check it out to see if it's true, because now I know what 7 is. 7 minus 3 equals 4, and that is a true statement. So y has to be 7 in this case. Got another one here. When I look at this, it's negative 8s equals 104. I gotta try to figure out this one, so I'm going to look at the side with the variable. I see that it's negative 8 times s, so I see multiplication, so I'm going to do the opposite. I'm kind of like undoing it. That's why I'm doing the opposite, so I can undo the math that's happening to my variable. So again, I see multiplication, so the opposite would be to divide. I see that it is negative 8 is what's being multiplied, so I'm going to divide by negative 8. And negative 8 over negative 8 is 1. And that's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get just have one s here. And when I do that, I have 104 divided by negative 8. A positive divided by a negative will be negative. 104 divided by 8 is 13. So if I want to check that out, I can say negative 8 times negative 13, because that's what s is, equals 104, and that is true. Fiery check mark. Yeah. Let's look at this next one. So it's look at the side with the variable. I see that I'm dividing by 11. So really what I have here is I have dividing by 11, so I'm going to multiply, which is the opposite of dividing. I see 11, so I'm going to go with 11, because 11 over 11 equals 1, and that's what I want. I just want 1. And I have negative 17 times 11, so a negative times a positive will be negative. 17 times 11 is 187. Let me check that. So now I know what y is, so I'm going to substitute it in right here. 187 divided by the 11, that's right there, equals the negative 17. And when I check that, that is indeed true. Time for a fiery check mark. Another quick example here. I see when I look at D, I see that it is being divided by 4. In fact, I can write this the other way. So let me do that, because I want you to see why I say look at the side with the variable. Okay. So here we are. I'm going to look at the side with the variable, which is the right side. I see that I'm dividing by negative 4. So the inverse to do that, or the opposite, would be to multiply by negative 4. I see dividing by negative 4, so I'm going to multiply by negative 4. And when I do that, negative 4 over negative 4 equals 1. And that's what I want. I just want D. negative 4 times negative 22, I end up with d equals 88, because a negative times a negative is positive. Let's see if it's true. Negative 22 equals 88 divided by negative 4. And that indeed is true. Ooh, blue fiery check mark. All right, on these ones here, these are two-step equations. Now what I did is on the left side of this one, I have the math that I did, and I'm just going to walk through the process. For a two-step equation, I'm going to start with kind of my adding and subtracting. Okay, so for negative 6 plus 1/3 w equals 0, I'm going to do the opposite. So I see subtracting 6 or negative 6, so I have to add 6 to both sides. And what that does is that clears everything out. I end up with 0 on that side, and that's what I want. And so I'm left with 1/3 w equals 0 plus 6 is 6. Now what's funny here is I have 1/3 of a w. And so remember, I want a whole W. So how do I get it? Well, I have 1/3, and I got to try to figure out how many thirds do I need. I need 3 of these things in order to get a whole one. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3. And how did I know to use 3 was, remember, I went up and I tried to figure out, well, how many of these thirds do I need to get a whole one? Because I ultimately want to get to just 1 W. So 3 1/3 get me to a nice whole W. And then I got to deal with the right side, because whatever you do to the left side, you have to do the right side. 6 times 3 is 18. And that is true. Let's take a look at the next one. The next one tells me, I'm going to do with my adding and subtracting first. So I'm adding 1, so I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. And I'm left with negative 1/5 k equals 11 minus 1 is 10. And I have 1/5 of a k. So how many do I need to make a whole one? I need 5 of those. I need 5 of those to make a full k. And so I'm going to multiply by 5 to both sides. That's what keeps it equal. But notice there's this negative hanging out right here. So I am going to bring the negative with it. So I can do a negative times a negative, which brings a positive, because I want to find what positive k is. And I have a positive times a negative, which is going to be negative. 10 times 5 is 50. So k equals negative 50. Okay, let's try a couple more. Kind of keep getting the hang of this. Look at the side with the variable, which is my left side. I have 7 over here, so I'm going to take away 7 from both sides. These zero out on the left side, and I'm left with m over 8 equals, I have a negative 2 minus 7, so I got to keep track of what's going on. I am at negative 2, and I'm taking away 7 more. That's what I end up with, negative 9. Negative 2 and taking away 7 more ends up at negative 9. So I have m divided by 8, and when I'm dividing by 8, the opposite would be to multiply by 8. And so 8 over 8 equals 1, so I'm left with 1m, and that's what I want. And I have a negative times a positive, so it's going to be negative. 9 times 8 is 72. Let's look at this guy here. I see a 12 here, so I need to get rid of the 12. Let's just clean out all the 12s. So I have 12, I subtracted out the 12, and I'm left with minus v over 4. So that minus now becomes more of a negative sign. So it's negative v over 4, and that's important later. And then 1 minus 12, I end up with negative 11. Now this is where that negative is important. So I'm going to take the v divided by 4, and the opposite would be to multiply by 4. But I'm going to take that negative with me, because a negative times a negative will be positive, and I want to know what positive v is, not negative v, so I'm going to take the negative with it. So always take it with it when you see it. And on this side, I've got a negative times a negative, which will be positive. 11 times 4 is 44. Do I have any more practices? Oh, I do. Nice. Let's see what we got here. X divided by 2 minus 5 equals 11. So I look at the side with the variable, which is the left side, but it's not always the left side. That's why I'm talking like this. I see I'm minusing 5, subtracting 5, so I'm going to add 5 to both sides. And I end up with x over 2 equals 16. And then the side with the variable, I see that it is dividing by 2, so the opposite would be to multiply by 2, because 2 over 2 equals 1. And I'm left with x equals 16 times 2, which is 32. I'm going to keep rolling here. This next equation, again, look at the side with the variable. I see I have an 18, so I want to deal with 18. I want to zero that out. And in this case, I'm going to subtract 18 from both sides, so it can go away. And I'm left with, I'm going to bring that negative down here. I mean, it's subtraction. Subtracting and negative are really meaning the same thing. So 15 minus 18 is negative 3. Now I see that I'm dividing by 15, so the opposite would be to multiply by 15. And there's that negative right there. So I'm going to deal with it by bringing that over as well. Negative 15 over negative 15 is 1. So I'm left with x. That's the only thing that's left over there, 1x. A negative divided by a negative will be positive. Or, sorry, a negative times a negative will be positive. And 3 times 15 is 45. Brilliant. Woohoo! There's more. Oh yeah. Practice, practice, practice. It's the way you get really good at these things. So again, look at the side of the variable. I see I'm adding 7, so I'm going to subtract 7. I'm left with negative v over 9 equals 14 minus 7, leaves me with 7. I see that I am dividing by 9, so I'm going to multiply by 9 both sides. And there's that negative, so I'm going to bring that negative across. Negative 9 over negative 9 leaves me with a v equals 7 times negative 9 is going to be negative 63. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to look at the left side. I see I'm adding 4, so the opposite would be to subtract by 4. And I'm left with w over 7 equals 6 minus 4, which is 2. I see that I'm dividing by 7, so the opposite would be to multiply by 7. And 7 over 7 is 1, so I'm left with 1w. 2 times 7 is 14. Any more? All done. Nice. Keep practicing this stuff, and you will get good at it. Just like if I keep practicing, maybe I can draw a picture of a face that actually looks like a face.